of extremes. You may be asked what is meant by the age of extremes. It may come for 2 mark. So, what is age of extremes? Huh? What is mean by extremes? You should understand here. Extremes in the sense the major changes which takes place, that is called what to call age of extremes. That big changes, major changes occurred in the world at 20th century. So what are those changes we should identify, and we should write when a question is asked about what do you know of age of extremes. So here are some of the changes occurred in the world given. First one is fascism. This was not there so far in the world. It began in the 20th century. So fascism is a one major change started in the world of in the 20th century. And what is fascism here, right? It is relating to the unquestioned power and hatred for other people. So what is mean by hatred to other people? It is aggressive nationalism, right? So its idea is based on aggressive nationalism. And another side, the second change, what is that? There is a importance of democracy. Many of the nations which suffered with the colonial rule, they wanted democratic system of government in their nations. So the democracy started growing in the world by 20th century. This is the second change. And third is that the average life expectancy, it also increased a lot due to the development in the field of medicines, right? What is the average life expectancy? It is the average lifespan of the people. So by taking the medicines, the life expectancy of the people increased, so that this is the change happened in 20th century. So it is called another change, that is average life expectancy increased instant, and literacy level also become very high, right? So far the literacy level in the world was low. By 20th century many schools, colleges were established, so the literacy level has increased. So it's a major change. People have got access for better education. And coming to in the field of science, their new discoveries were made regarding the life and autumn. And many of the countries which were under colonial rule, they got independence all over the world. So these are some major changes which occurred in the world by 20th century. These changes never these changes so far not happened before 20th century, right? So a turning place it is in the 20th century, so that it is called age of extremes. This is the word age of extremes is given by the Eric Hobsbawm. Then who is Eric Hobsbawm? A historian, right? He is a historian who studies the history. He given the name the age of extremes. So when a question is asked about age of extremes, you should write about it. So this is what to call age of extremes. Now coming to that, we see what are the causes of the World War One, right? Here, one important cause is there every time it comes in the uh, what to call examination. Many times there is a question on this concept. Okay, that is aggressive nationalism. Here it is there, right? So what is aggressive nationalism here? If you look this para, you will find here two concepts. One is nationalism and another one is aggressive nationalism. What is given in the first line? Nationalism is a positive impulse, means positive thing it is. What is the positive thing? Nationalism. So nationalism helped many of the countries to be independent. So because of the strong feeling of nationalism, many nations were formed in the Europe continent. How can you say that nationalism is a positive impulse? Here two examples are given. One is unification of Germany and Italy. Earlier, Germany and Italy was disintegrated and its territories were placed under different dynasties, and these people suffered under the different dynasties. Then they fought for their unity. So what made them to fight? It is a feeling that they belongs to one culture, one language, that is nationalism. So because of the strong nationalistic feelings, Germany and Italy were united and turned to what to call a new states, that is Germany and Italy. So nationalism is a positive thing, a positive impulse which helps the people to unite and stand for their nation. So later another concept is given here, aggressive nationalism. What is aggressive nationalism? It is the pride about their nations and hatred against their neighboring countries. People of one nation feel proud of their nation and hates other neighboring countries. That what we call here aggressive nationalism. Aggressive nationalism developed in Germany and Italy, right? In Italy, aggressive nationalism developed in the form of fascism, and in Germany in the form of Nazism. So fascism, Nazism in Italy and Germany, these are the concepts based on aggressive nationalism. Aggressive nationalism is a destructive force. It destroys the neighboring countries. So these fascism, Nazism, which are the forms of aggressive nationalism, developed in 1923. So here, fascists, they promoted that aggressive nationalism of the Germany will make the Germany to rule the world. So because of this concept, In Germany and Italy, they started waging war on their neighboring countries and tried to expand their supremacy and entered into the world wars. So, because of this ideology, that is aggressive nationalism, many nations were suffered, and finally it turned to the World War One. So, what is good for the nations is nationalism. Aggressive nationalism in any kind, in any form, is not good for the world. So, when you write a comment on this paragraph, you should write about the two concepts, that is, what is nationalism and what changes have come in Europe with the nationalism. What changes have come? Germany and Italy. These are the two nations created because of strong feeling of nationalism. Later, what happened in these nations? It turned to aggressive nationalism. It means that when the nationalism reaches to its peak stage, it turns to aggressive nationalism. Nationalism is good, but when it becomes much more, what do you mean by much more? When people start thinking that their nation is only great in the world, that's wrong. People are allowed to think that their nation is great, but it is not good for all when people think that their nation only great in the world. Here only I am using the word. It means that remaining world is nothing in front of their nation. So it develops pride when they think that their nation only great. Right? So a pride develops, a proudness develops, and from that hatred starts against other nations. So aggressive nationalism is not at all good for the world. How can we say that aggressive nationalism is not good for the world? Because we have seen two major world wars we faced. That means the world is faced two world wars in the 20th century. So this is an experience and becomes your example to say that aggressive nationalism is not good. Today also we find aggressive nationalism in some of the nations. Right? Pakistan is violating the what to call the boundary and trying to occupy the territories of India. It is aggressive nationalism. China is there. It's trying to occupy its surrounding territory. So it is existed, right? So you should write about this uh, paragraph commenting in a way that what is nationalism first, then how the nationalism helped the nations, then you should write what is aggressive nationalism, then after how it turned to the World War One and World War Two, right? And you should suggest that it is not good for the world. Okay, this is about aggressive nationalism, which is a cause for World War One. Okay, next is imperialism, another cause for the World War. Right? What is the base for imperialism? It is industrial capitalism. So, what is industrial capitalism here? it is using the machinery in the process of production. So there capitalism is based on industries by the use of machineries. So the process of production is by machines, and that led for capitalism. So it is industrial capitalism which started in Europe. So the growth of industrial capitalism is the base for imperialism. In Europe, many of the nations, Britain, Germany, and US, they wanted raw materials for their industries and also wanted markets for selling their products. So the domestic market was not enough. They produced much more. They wanted to sell other part of the world. They wanted raw material for producing the goods. Raw material was raw material not enough which available in that nations. So they wanted to get raw material from other nations, and the same time they want to sell their products in other nations. So this idea of getting raw material and market for their products made these industrial nations to expand their political domination to other part of the world. So the political expansion in search of raw material and market centers for their products is led to the imperialism. They wanted to invest their capital in the safe places. So what is the safe place for them? The place where they have control. So in order to make their investment safe in other part of the world, they started colonization. So colonies expanded for these nations which are industrially dominant. So by the end of the 19th century, between industrial nations, there was a competition for expanding the colonies, that what we call here imperialism. Okay, what is imperialism? It is a competition for colonies between the European powers, that is imperialism. So here already Britain had a big empire with many colonies. After the Britain, some other nations in Europe too turned to industrial nations, that is Germany and Italy. These are the industrial nations after the Britain. We know that Britain had experienced industrial revolution first in the world. So Britain had established a major, a large empire of colonies. Then after, Germany and Italy too turned to industrial nations. So we call them newly emerged industrial powers. What is meant by newly emerged industrial powers? It is Germany and Italy. Okay, so they too want colonies for their raw material for industries and to sell their products, that is markets. So they demanded the old industrial powers to redivide the colonies so that they could get some colonies for getting raw material and market for their products. So this was not accepted by the old industrial powers. So there was a tension of markets and raw material places for old industrial powers and newly industrial powers. So the tension for markets and raw materials, in other words, colonies. The tension for colonies between old industrial powers and newly industrial powers led to the war, and it turned to World War One. In such a way, imperialism turned to the a cause for a world war. Right? This is the second cause for world war. Today also we see what that many of the nations trying to get command on other nations. It is not colonialism. By the process of globalization, they are trying to control the nations which are very powerful. They are trying to establish domination on other nations with the process of globalization, right? That is neo-colonialism we call. Understand? So imperialism also become one of the causes for the world wars. Understand? Next, another important cause for world wars, that is secret alliances, right? Secret alliances. Dear students, here we know that two types of secret alliances are there. What is alliance here? It is an association formed for mutual benefits, right? Especially the countries, right? Some of the nations have formed a group, an organization for their mutual benefits. We call them alliances. When these are formed very secretly, those are called secret alliances. So in 1870, when France was defeated, there the Bismarck, the German chancellor, uh, he wanted to isolate the France. This is in the process of unification of Germany and Italy at that time. So to make France alone, German Chancellor Bismarck, he entered into a secret agreement with Austria in 1879. That is dual alliance. Later with Italy and Austria in 1882. The German means Germany made an agreement of a secret alliance with Austria and Italy. That become here triple alliance. What is triple alliance? It is a secret alliance formed with Germany, Austria and Italy, right? So France also made one dual alliance with Russia in 1891. Later, it made with Britain in 1904. So France, Russia, Britain, They formed one alliance that is called Triple Entente. So, what are the secret alliances formed during the World War One time? That is a Triple Alliance, Triple Entente, right? Triple Alliance is formed by Italy, by the Germany. uh, It is formed by the Germany, then Austria and Italy. These are the three nations formed a triple alliance. Russia, France, Britain formed a triple entente. Right? So Germany was the leader in triple alliance, and in triple entente, Britain was the leader. So these are the two opposite blocks, opposite power blocks. They wanted supremacy in the world. So these two power blocks, sorry, these two secret alliances, they developed a suspicion on other secret alliances. So they wanted to crush the other part of the alliances. So they created a situation, an atmosphere in the world with armed peace. So to become safe in the world from their counter alliance, they given importance for increasing the weapons. So these secret alliances created a tension in the world and removed the real peace by establishing armed peace. So with the formation of secret alliances, there an atmosphere is created with fear and armed peace. So a tension prevailed in the world regarding wars, fear of war. Ultimately, World War One happened with this secret alliances. Here we'll stop.